Listen, brother, would you debate a wall?
Well, debate me. I'm allowing you to define.
No,
evidence.
I'm just telling him.
So what?
Some advice. Don't debate a wall. It's not healthy.
So what? You have a belief.
So
Where does it come from?
I believe in the existence of God,
Okay.
who's one and only absolute independent self-sufficient.
Mhm.
And I have justification for that.
Okay. So
Do you believe?
talk me through that
Do
justification.
you believe in God?
I have no reason to personally, but I'm interested in your
Sure.
reason for believing the same.
Fine. So if I were to go through a process so that we can perhaps this shared learning, that we can agree whether there is a God or not.
Well, I don't know about agree. We'll have to see at the end. But
Or disagree?
I'm curious or disagree. But
Fine.
What is yours?
Do you believe nothing can make something?
Oh,
It's
right,
not a tough question.
if that's a starting point, then the common argument is, if God is something, then God comes from where?
You see, immediately went into defense and trying to fit out of the 50 arguments for God that I've read in the Wikipedia or online or somewhere, which one does it fit into? That's not how we should seek or justification of belief from someone, right? So the reason I ask you why, because that will decipher our paradigm and whether we need a paradigm shift in our thinking. So I'm asking you a simple question, which is understood by philosophers and lay people alike. Can nothing make something? If you ask me, I will tell you no. What is your understanding?
Suppose I say yes. What's your point?
What's about suppose? I want to know rationally, coherently, and justifiably an answer. Can nothing make something?
Suppose I say
There's no suppose thing.
for anything to exist, then something has to come from nothing.
There's no
Because
such thing as suppose.
Well, if I'm taking a step forward, your point is, we see something that exists. It has to come from somewhere. That somewhere is God. No? Then correct me.
Can nothing make something is the same question I've asked. So if you were to ask me, I will tell you no.
Okay.
Because nothing, I'm sure you know there are several levels of nothing. There are 9 levels of nothing.
Okay.
If I give you some presents and you open the box and there's nothing in there, you say there's no present. But I gave you a box and the box is not empty. It's got air in it,
Okay.
space in it,
Okay.
molecules, gravity, quantum fluctuations, right? It's not nothing. So nothing has different levels. The nothing that I'm talking about is nothing that it has no possibility of giving rise to anything, something.
So
absolute nothingness.
Can I sum up your point of view by saying that anything that exists has to come from something or somewhere?
You again jumping to.
Well, I'm trying to rephrase it.
No. Why are you trying to formulate and think? Oh, what is the argument leading towards? Just let's understand the thing first of all. Can nothing give rise to something? Can nothing make something? And what I'm defining to you now is the nothing that is absence of everything, and that includes space, time, quantum fluctuations, and possibilities. Absolutely nothing.
I won't lie, you have stumped me with quantum fluctuations because I'm not sure I understand it to the level that you do. But if I'm still trying to understand.
Was my statement, that question, very difficult to understand?
Well, all right. You're asking the question, can nothing give rise to something?
Yeah.
And your answer is no.
Yeah. What is your answer?
In which case, I think an equivalent statement is something cannot come from nothing.
No, that's my answer. But I want. No. I want to know your answer.
You're saying.
I want to know your answer, not mine.
Well, that depends on exactly what it is that you're saying. But are you saying that something cannot come from nothing?
What's your name?
Jacob.
I am Mansur, Jacob.
Biblical, by the way.
Jacob, I am Mansur. Pleasure speaking to you.
And you.
I want to know from your perspective and whether we need a paradigm shift. Remember what I said? Whether we need a paradigm shift.
My perspective is.
Yeah.
Yes. Because even if you believe in a God as the absolute core basis of truth that gives rise to everything, then you believe in a God that exists. And if that God exists, then that God is something. And that something must then come from nothing. And it's not my argument, it's a very common one. It's an argument of infinite regression. If the universe was given rise to by God, then where does God come from? Oh, God came from nothing, so nothing can give rise to something. So I think that the difference between our perspectives is that you believe God is the truth, And as an atheist, I suppose I believe that what we see is the truth.
Okay. So you've made several assumptive errors there, errors coming from assumption.
Okay.
We as Muslim or theists in general, we do not believe God came from something or from nothing.
You believe that God is?
I will tell you. I will tell you. I will tell you. So your assumption that God came from nothing, and then you answer that question, yes, nothing can make something, was mistaken already.
But why is that? So if you're allowed to make the assumption that God just is, and there was no nothing previously,
look, remember,
why am I not allowed to make the assumption that the universe just is, and there was no nothing
Firstly, I asked you a question, can something come from nothing? And you should justify that. Likewise, I should be able to justify my statement too. So I would like to ask you again, once again, from your own perspective, in your own critical, rational thinking, can nothing make something? And the nothing that I have described already.
Yes. I think the way that you phrase the question, the answer can only be yes.
So how can nothing make something? Can you just show us some justification?
Oh, God, I absolutely no idea. But I don't think I've got any less of an idea than the theist who says that God just exists. And
remember, you now an atheist, if you are one, Jacob, you are on the defense to justify your position, not me.
Well,
because I'm
on the defense because you repeatedly asked me.
I have made you into defense, and I would like to hear a coherent, cogent, rational explanation, a justification of your statement that yes, something can come from nothing. Go ahead.
Okay, the argument is, as I believe previously, my position is no different from yours. If I try to say that everything that we see exists and just does, I don't think I'm making a very different argument from you, saying that God exists and just does. We both face the same issue. I'm trying to explain how the universe exists apropos of nothing, which I can't. And you're trying to explain how God exists apropos of nothing, which you can't. But I don't think we're too different on that page. I think regardless of whether you believe in a God or not, the reliance on the point of something has to come from somewhere, that doesn't solve either of our issues. I can't explain how this came from nowhere, and I don't think that you can explain how God came from nowhere.
Remember,
and as I say, it's a very old point.
Remember, Jacob, your failure to justify should not be imposed on me, as like I also, right? So I want you, on your own merit, on your own critical thinking, justify the assertion that you've just made, or you can take it back and say, actually, no. I give you either options.
Let me answer it. So, whatever you would say about your belief for God existing,
you don't even know what I'm going to say.
I don't know.
So it's irrelevant.
Say, I will copy and paste.
No, it's irrelevant. I would like to know, you as a critical thinking individual, I would like to hear some justification.
I've accepted that I can't. But the point that
But you made an assertion. You've made an assertion you're unable to justify. So you've made a faith-based claim.
I don't know whether you...
So you made a claim based on faith. So it's a blind faith.
A claim based on faith?
Yeah, it's a blind faith, isn't it? You can't justify it.
No. I've made a claim of ignorance. I've made a claim that I don't know where all this comes from.
Yeah, you might be a flying spaghetti monster, right?
It might be.
That's what you're saying. And you don't even know. That's the difference between you and me as a theist, as a Muslim.
No. But the point that I'm attacking,
which you will see,
the argument of something must come from somewhere, I don't think solves your problem any more than it solves mine.
Brother, 1 second.
Out of curiosity, what's your religion? I can see you in the background. Okay. What are you? Okay.
Yeah, fine. So they're happy for me to represent as the Muslims here. I'm sure my brother will be too. So you said you cannot justify it. If I said nothing doesn't even have the possibility of making something, and yet you make an assertion that it can make something, isn't that a contradiction in terms? Are you logical and reasonable?
I hope so.
Then if you are logical and reasonable, you should say a nothing that doesn't even have possibility of giving rise to anything, it cannot give rise to anything. That's reasonable assertion. That's being logical and rational.
So do you believe that there ever was nothing?
Now I'm telling you, nothing that I've described, that nothing, if it doesn't even have possibility of arising, making anything, then you cannot simply say, I am actually a rational human being, a reasonable human being, a logical human being, and then yet claim
But
that it can make something.
we're talking about the transition from nothing to nothing to this.
I'm just telling
So
you.
do you believe that there ever was a nothing? That there was a point
You're
where
not answering the question. You're going into another question to put me now in justifying my position, which I will do. I've already stated my answer, but I will.
I hope that I've already answered your question.
No,
My
you
answer
haven't.
was-
You haven't.
Well, I've said yes.
You have said yes, but we would like to know, as theists,
Sure.
your justification for it, and you say you have no justification. So now the question would be, are you being
I'll
reasonable?
explain.
Are you being reasonable?
I'll explain. My,
Are you a reasonable
my,
atheist?
my justification is it's because of the phraseology of the question. Sorry, I didn't.
That's right.
It's because of the way the question is phrased, right? I think you have to answer that question with yes. Can something arise from nothing? I think that question can only be answered yes. Because regardless of whether you believe in a God or not, we all seem to believe that all this started off as nothing. And in your worldview, there was nothing, then a God, then this. And in my worldview, there was nothing, and then this.
Let me just help you a little bit before you
regardless-
make several mistakes again. There was never a time when God was absent. So it wasn't nothing
Okay,
and then
so-
God.
okay.
No. Just to help you around. So you keep asserting to then refute this position when this position is astromanning incorrectly.
Sure.
Your position that something can come from nothing, while I define nothing doesn't even have possibility of giving rise to anything, is this a reasonable assertion to make?
Well, but so if you say there was never a point when God was absent, and you say there was never a nothing.
I'm talking about
Because there was
something and nothing. Remember, you're now on a defense to represent the atheistic community if you're an atheist.
Trying to answer the question.
Right.
Agnostic for the record.
Agnostic. Fine. Jacob, the agnostic. Okay. Mansur, the Muslim.
Jacob, the agnostic.
Yeah.
Rapper name if I ever try to say it.
With no offense, by the way.
No.
Right. So, nothing I've defined to you, the ninth level of nothingness, which is even the absence of possibilities. That it doesn't even have a possibility of making anything. That means if I were a rational human being, a critical, reasonable, logical human being, I would say, according to that definition, the answer has to be categorically no. Nothing cannot make something because it doesn't even have a possibility of making anything.
Okay. Sorry.
So when you made that assertion, were you being reasonable? Having
if
heard the definition.
If you've not to be too pretentious, if you study philosophical logic, right, you're saying that your answer to the question, can nothing give rise to something, is no.
Based on the definition of nothing.
Just the way I phrased that question.
No, based on the definition of nothing.
Sure.
The answer has to be no.
The answer has to be
If
no,
you
fine.
don't say
Then
no
that
and
is-
say yes, then
that
we
is-
have to agree that you are being
then
unreasonable.
That is logically equivalent. That is logically equivalent to saying that something must arise from something. Something must arise from not nothing. Right?
Something must come from something.
Something must come from something.
Yeah.
Your God exists.
No. Let's take.
No. Your God
No.
exists. That's an easy one.
Hang
That's a
on,
yes
hang
or
on.
no.
Jacob.
Of course it's easy.
Let's go back
Your
to
God-
nothing and something.
Come on. Your God exists.
Always
Your
exists.
God is something.
Yeah, he always
So
existed.
where does your God come from?
Always existed. There's no question
Right,
of
well
coming
then-
from.
And then this is where I'm trying to build bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Your God always existed. My universe always existed.
Fine.
It doesn't need a
Fine.
And
So
your God
so
doesn't need a higher.
let's now come to an understanding of a reasonable one. So your universe, by definition of nothing that we explain, your universe has to have existed always. There could have been a time where it was absolutely nothing to begin with.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
So do you believe the universe existed always?
I believe that the conditions for the universe to arise existed always. Yes. So I believe in a Big Bang, and then it comes down to what you consider to be a universe. But for the purpose of the
do you
question, yes, I
believe
the universe
do you believe the universe existed 17 billion years ago?
Yes, but in some context.
In what context?
Okay, so
When did time begin?
About 17 billion years ago.
No.
Sorry,
Okay.
about 13.7 billion years ago. But to a quantum physicist, there was something prior to the Big Bang which existed, which allowed the conditions for the Big Bang to. But I don't understand this stuff well enough.
Okay.
But I'm saying,
worries.
regardless, even if you
Something
take,
existed.
something is
Okay. So now we are on a common ground. Something has to always be in existence to explain us, our existence. You cannot have a time in inverted quotes in the past where there was absolute nothingness. Because from absolute nothingness, you will get absolute nothingness. There has to be always something. Either it's the universe or its conditions or whatever it was. Always something.
If by nothingness you mean like an absence of matter.
Absence of everything.
What? An absence of
everything.
So an absence of matter is different from an absence of laws of physics.
No, absence of everything includes laws of physics.
Then I'm not well educated enough to answer that question. Is the honest answer?
No. The answer is if there is such a thing called nothing, which doesn't have anything, not even laws and possibilities, then from that nothing you will get nothing. Something cannot come from it. That is a reasonable, logical, rational position to take. And it's not rocket science, it's common sense. Because we've defined what nothing is.
Okay. I believe that if there is such thing as a universal set of laws of physics, they existed prior to the Big Bang. I think that's the best way I can answer your question. Yeah. I've also got somewhere to be in an hour, but it was lovely to chat to you.
Yeah. If we had time,
if you had time, videos get a lot of views.
If we had time, Jacob, we'd have shown you. We'd have shown you how.
I'm sure you.
The position we have is justifiable, but of course you have to go.
Of course.
Okay. Pleasure speaking to you. And if you ever come across again, we can continue this talk.
Sure.
Yeah. Take care. Take care.
To summarize, what was the point that he was slipping on and he kept on going back to you to try and get you to answer a question?
Yes. This is something that I think we should take note and learn from. Atheists for the last few decades have been trying to put the Muslims or theists in general on defense. Yeah. Like, prove the existence of God. Time has changed. We've turned the table around. We are now putting them on the defense to justify their atheistic position. And you will find that they are now struggling. They're struggling to justify their own position. Like, how many times did I have to tell him what nothing is? Again and again. And still he thinks maybe this nothing can give rise to something. When common sense tells us, if you have such a concept, you will get nothing out of it. So that is why Professor Lawrence Krauss, when he wrote a book called The Universe from Nothing, it was a book of deception. Do you know why it's a book of deception? Because many of his followers thought, now we have a reason to believe the universe came from nothing. Because it says on the title, the universe came from nothing. Yeah. But in the book, he explains it, even though a little, what he means by nothing. His nothing is something. There's quantum fluctuations, gravity, and so on and so forth. And so gravitational fields and other things like that. So it's not nothing, it's something. They have to deceive. In fact, I actually asked him when I went for a book signing. I asked him, deliberately, I had to pay for this book to ask him that question, right? I would have bought it anyway, just to see what he's saying. Why are you deceiving? He said, I have explained my nothing in the book. So I said, why do we call it nothing then? So they want to differentiate between a philosophical nothing and a scientific nothing. That is the deception. That is the trick. So now, as you see, the shift that he has is trying to make like, oh, you have the same problem. Look at how he's trying to, and then you have to defend it. There was nothing to begin with, and then God came and so on. I had to correct him a few times again. We don't believe God came from nothing. God was always there. So which makes sense? God was always there, or the universe which was always there or not? Because he knows the universe wasn't always there. I asked him a question about 17 billion years ago or 18 billion years ago. He knows there is no such thing as a 17 billion years ago because time itself began much later. Yeah, 16.3 billion years or something, 8. So time had a beginning. So you can't say a time beforehand because it's not meaningful. So then he has his own perception of the reality, saying there's conditions, the physical laws, when there is no physics to begin with, for this universe that gave rise to this universe. That would have been an interesting talk when we could have established then whatever you consider that to have been there, present, has to be always there. Because if it wasn't always there, same problem again. Nothing cannot make something. So if you now put some reason and critical thinking in place, and you will see that whatever was always there to give rise to this something like our universe, this transformation to happen, it cannot happen unless the thing that was there is self-aware, conscious, has a will, possesses a will, an intent, and has knowledge and power or energy. If these conditions are absent, this universe will not be transformed into what it is now. It's impossible rationally. And that is the discussion we are having week after week in Speaker's Corner, and yet our atheist friends are not learning. So we would like to invite our atheist friends to be people of critical thinking. We are asking you to be people of critical thinking. Don't think you are someone that you're telling Muslims to be critical thinking. Islam is the one that developed the whole scientific methodology and gave you the Renaissance in Europe. I'm not just making a claim. Go and study and find out. If it wasn't for Islam, you'd be in Dark Ages.
What about the false equivalence that he gave that? He said,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you're in the same position. That's what he's trying to say. He said,
Which
the
we're
universe
not.
always existed. God always existed according to you. So we're equal. Can I walk away now? Like, why do you think they try and do this?
Yeah. Again, firstly, in what I understand from this is just trying to deflect it back to me.
Yeah.
Like to atheists, put the theists on the defense. And then you'll have Muslims trying to justify. But that's what I was trying to do anyway. I was justifying my position of believing in a God to begin with. And that's the question that I went through in a systematic process for him to follow through my critical thinking.
Yeah.
Okay? So the reason they want to do that is just to move the goalpost and say, why don't you prove it? Back to the same tactics they used to do. Okay? You defend the proposition that God exists. No. Yeah. So we want to make it back on their table, on their foot, to justify their position.
This is a paradigm shift in the dawah. Because for too long, we've taken the onus on us unnecessarily.
Exactly.
We don't need to.
Exactly. So again, those of you who are learning from this exchange, I highly recommend you go into Sapiens Institute and listen to brothers like Sabur, Jake Brancatella, listen to Hamza Zorsis, Dr. Latif Usman Latif. Listen to them and go into Thought Adventure podcasts, brothers. Sharif, Abdul Rahman, Jake, Yusuf Ponders, and see where we are changing the paradigm. That, like I was telling Jacob, the agnostic friend, yeah. Now, we are bringing again now arguments on an academic level to demonstrate to people why our theistic position not only reasonable, rational, but it is what critical mind, critical thinking demonstrates one should take that position. So it is no longer an issue of blind faith. It is no longer, oh, Muslims, you just believe because God says so. We can tell you why we believe with the philosophical justification, with the critical mind and critical thinking, and you will have no reason to disagree with us. If you disagree, like I asked him, if you disagree that something can come from nothing when the nothing doesn't even have possibility of bringing something, then you're not reasonable. Your position will be unreasonable. Someone who is not using critical thinking, not being rational and reasonable. Yeah. So this is the next step of dawah. Go to these two places that I mentioned at least and try to learn about how we are using the arguments from the Quran and Sunnah. This is not philosophy. The Quran says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمْ خَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. This is the argument I was using. أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ. Were they created from nothingness? Is it philosophy? This is the kalam Allah. This is Allah is describing us to use our critical thinking about, can something come from nothingness? Can nothing create? So this is what we are saying, brothers and sisters. We are not using philosophy just for the sake of arguing. Our dawah should be rooted in the Quran and Sunnah, and hopefully believe wholeheartedly that it is so. The brothers who are involved, they are using the Quran and Sunnah. Of course, sometimes we don't use the ayah straight away because they might just back off like that. But we use their language, the language they're familiar with, but it's coming from the Quran in their own language of philosophy, logic and rationality. So may Allah give us the ability to learn and to help others to see the light of Islam. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So Brother Sabur, you were saying from the discussion that we had earlier about a particular gentleman called Jacob. His position is agnosticism, and he was actually creating a false equivalence. So what exactly you noticed?
Yeah, so one of the things that was going on in the discussion is you were trying to take him down a linear, progressive line of thinking to a conclusion about who has the burden of proof and what is the status quo here.
Yeah.
And as soon as he realized, actually, I can't justify my position that you can get something from nothing because we're not going to be deceived by the definition of nothing, then it's going to be a matter of trying to get you to justify your position when actually he's in the position to justify the position. I think one of the problems here, and there's a Muslim earlier who was trying to interject and he was trying to get involved in terms of how to answer it. And I knew what was about to happen, so I stopped him. The reason why is because Muslims think, okay, if someone's asked a question, you answer it. No, you're taking them down a route to show what their position is, and you have to continue down that line in a very focused way without getting distracted by these things. And I think discussions about nothingness and something, and whether something can come from nothing, or for example, he said, was there always nothing, right? We can get into discussions about what Aristotle spoke about, material causes and effective causes, but it's a tangent. We rather just stick to the fact that they cannot justify their position, and actually the boot is on the other foot. It's time for us to put them on the back foot and get them to justify their position.
Absolutely. 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 So again, I mean, the discussion that happens in Speaker's Corner, you should make a note and take notice that we are not trying to just give answers because they demand the answers. We want to know what will convince them. Because ultimately, in fact, I recently had a discussion on back of on the last video that we had, last discussion we had with Mason, remember?
Oh, yeah.
There was an individual who's saying, oh, I have seen 50 plus arguments for the existence of God and I found nothing convincing. Is my position justified? So I asked him, what will convince you? And we went back and forth. Eventually, he would not give anything because he knows he hasn't got a clue what will convince him. If you know what will convince, if I know what will convince me, then I can then ask you to give me that.
Okay, yeah, so just on that point, I think this is very important. What you'll find is get atheists saying, I'm not convinced. The thing is, it's irrelevant whether they're convinced because they make themselves the yardstick as if they are the person who decides what argument is valid or not valid. But like you mentioned about Mason, not only did he not have a criteria, he didn't even know how to put together a criteria. So in order for someone to say, I'm not convinced by these arguments, if they don't provide a justification, their literal position is incoherent. For you, the positive claim, I am not convinced, meaning there must be something at least potentially which could convince them. And I think this is one of the problems in the dawah, that we try and justify our position without actually getting the other person to explain what justification is going to be valid enough for them to change their position.
Exactly. So it is something we should call our paradigm shift, where it's no longer now just you're on the back foot, but instead asking them to justify their own paradigm and their own narrative and their own worldview, how coherent and how reasonable it is. If they're demanding evidence, what kind of evidence, firstly, would convince you? And why do I need to convince you in the first place? Why are you the standard, the yardstick, the arbiter, the arbitration judge to make sure that this is the truth? You know? Well, exactly. You know, if I'm convinced with the arguments, you should rather think critically whether these arguments should convince you too, rather than you setting up some standards.
Yeah.
You know, in the Quran, with the Sabur, Allah talks about there are people, even if they were to see stairs going up to the heavens, the dead speaking, they would not believe. In fact, some of them will say our eyes is bewildered. It's like we are in a delusion, or we are having an illusion. So we know, and this is one of the reasons why when we ask about what evidence you're seeking, is just to demonstrate to them that doesn't matter whatever you give to an atheist. If they are not sincere and they're arrogant and stubborn, nothing will convince them. Even if you were to show them stairs going up to heaven, as the Quran says, they will say like, oh, it's magic, or I'm deluded. Mass delusion. Yeah. Not me only, everyone else is deluded. Some kind of narcotic gas has been, applied here, and that's why we're having this delusion. So convincing of the heart is not a matter of just giving rational proof, presenting evidence. There's something else that's needed. it's the heart that needs to be open to the evidence. If it's not open, it doesn't matter whatever you give. It's like, imagine, I want to give you some water because you want to drink. And all you do is, you give me the cup, the glass upside down. However I try, it's not going to hold any water. The heart needs to be in the right shape and right form, in the right approach to receive guidance and convincing arguments. If it's not, then no matter what we give.
And you know, the thing about Jason, which I realized as well, is that he's learning from high priests like Matt Dillahunty, Richard Dawkins, and Lawrence Krauss. Why? Because every single one of these people is very much in the same vein of arguments that they actually make. Because I could almost predict what he was saying next. Because they only have one way of thinking. The people that they learn from, you get people like Dan Barker, right? He said if he saw God, he would tell God to go to hell. So the thing is, it's got nothing to do with, like you said, the mind, it's the heart. I remember I had a conversation with a guy who was agnostic, and I asked him, if you saw God, would you believe in God? Like, it's a very simple point.
Yeah.
And he wasn't able to give a satisfactory answer to that, because deep down, it's not about evidence. It's something beyond the evidence. So these examples of these interactions is very important to show people deep down, if he was sincere, he would have said at that point, hang on a minute, I have a position that's incoherent, unjustifiable. This guy has something to say, let me listen. But instead, when he got cornered, he's like, I have to go. So, you know, you let him go, which is fine, fair enough. What I would have done is I had said, well, you're leaving because you've got no place to go. But the most important thing that we have to do is we have to try and teach people, ultimately, these atheists have nothing to offer the world.
Absolutely. And this is why Islam provides not only rational, intellectual justification. Have you read in the Quran, Allah says, أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Allah is constantly reprimanding us. Don't use your intellect. So Islam is a religion, a way of life, the faith that we believe in. It's based on solid ground, solid foundation. So let these people not take that away from you by their empty rhetoric. This is all I have to say now. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you. Barakallah feek. Thank you.